We're about to join another amazing talk, but just before we do, I want to say a huge thank you to our sponsors, speakers, and you, our wonderful audience, for making this event possible. With expert presentations and inspirational discussions on the agenda, you are in for a real treat today. Please ensure you are sharing your feedback and asking all questions in the comment section of the video, as our speakers will be answering them throughout their session. After the event, a great place to continue the conversation is in the Customer Marketing Alliance Slack channel, where you will be able to connect with peers, get access to fresh content, and discover new opportunities. I'll be posting the sign-up link regularly in the comments, so if you're not already involved, keep your eyes peeled and join the discussion. And remember, you can gain on-demand access to all of our exclusive event footage with a CMA Pro membership. So with all this in mind, let's dive back in.
Hey everyone, so excited to be here today with all of you and to share a little bit of insights. We are here with a few people, which is great, and we're going to be talking about building out advocacy and champion programs, the good, the bad, the ugly, and what we're calling the spooky since it's Halloween. And so we have Valerio from Cisco, we have Jessica from Dropbox, Vernon from LaunchDarkly, and myself from Coupa. And so what we really want to do is just have a conversation with you all, and hopefully you have some tactical takeaways. So we powwowed as a group together and came up with some journeys and some questions that we would have wanted to know for advocacy, and just had a conversation around it. So we have a set of questions and we'll kind of start with that, if that's okay. How's it sound, everyone?
Yeah, perfect.
Great.
Well, for the benefit of the group, let's introduce ourselves. And so I'll start with you, Valerio.
Perfect. I'll go first. And thanks, Jessica, for the intro. My name is Valerio Batelli. I'm based in London, UK. I've been in customer marketing for 10 years. So I started in fintech, and I worked for a company called Finastra. And after that, I joined Cisco, and currently I'm head of global advocacy and SPO at Cisco. So I'm really excited, obviously, about this panel and getting more information about your programs as well. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. And yeah, your role sounds really broad. So hopefully at some point we can all learn a little bit more about what that means, not just on what we're talking about today. But Jessica, take it away.
Yes, thanks. Glad to be here. So my journey in customer marketing started when I co-founded a startup, and I was the only marketer. But the main motion by which we grew the company was actually content and customer marketing. So that started as a team of one, and now I work at Dropbox, where I'm the customer marketing manager for our e-signature product, but I'm also the driver of our overall champions program. So it's a very different experience being on a team of 5 people than it was being a team of 1.
Yeah.
And I think we were going to talk about where customer marketing currently lives in our organization. It's actually interesting. It lives in different places and different orgs. And so on the e-signature product side, customer marketing lives under content marketing. But then on the Dropbox side, it lives under product marketing. So kind of got best of both worlds there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Valerio, where do you all sit?
Yeah, we sit under growth, marketing, and but we are fully aligned, with sales. So sales and marketing are very aligned in our organization. So that's definitely beneficial.
Mm-hmm. Cool, thanks, Vernon.
Yeah, hey everybody. My name is Vernon Gomez, and I am the one and only customer marketer at LaunchDarkly. I've been with LaunchDarkly for a couple of years, about 3 years, and have been building up sort of our foundation for champion programs, CAB, and everything that sort of touches customer references. And for customer marketing at our organization, it sits under product marketing.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And I'm Charlotte Lilly, and I head up global customer marketing at Coupa, and have been doing customer marketing for a number of years. Started at Box, a little bit of competition on the call back in the day. And we technically sit under what we call product segment marketing. So basically product marketing, but under that umbrella is also analyst relations, our whole events team, customer marketing and product marketing. So it's kind of an interesting combination, but really great for alignment, as we've been talking about. Yeah. And so we all kind of did touch a little bit into how we got into customer marketing. So I think maybe we'll kind of move into, what we're talking about today, which is advocacy programs. And so one thing that we all kind of were curious about was when you first come into an organization or you're building out customer marketing, where do you start with an advocacy program? And I think all of us think about that a little bit differently because each company is so different and our experience is different, our team sizes are different. And so we probably have that vast experience in the audience as well. And so, Valeria, I think you had some thoughts on, where do you really start when you're thinking about an advocacy program? We'd love to hear.
That's a great question. So when I joined Cisco 6 years ago, I can say it wasn't a customer advocacy driven organization. So that was very evident. And I think the first thing that you need to do is to investigate, research what's been done, and that's what my manager Christine and I did in the first place. So really understanding what customer marketing meant for the company, and what opportunities we could see to create an advocacy mindset. And I always think that you need to have the vision, you need to have the clear passion about making your company customer obsessed. So after that, I think that we identified opportunities, but we also were aware of the complexity of a big organization. I'm not going to lie. So when you start a new program, you need to take let's say little steps, I would say. So and in our case, we created a pilot, a small community of customer advocates that could speak on our behalf. And it was probably, if I'm not mistaken, 200 people, even less. And after that, we started leveraging a lot of partnerships to make sure that pilot could be promoted across the company. So based on my experience, I would say that you need to let's say understand what your company vision is. You need to understand what kind of benefits you can bring to your customers, but you also need to start by knocking on the doors of people asking for partnerships, proving the value of that small pilot. And after that, I mean, that's been our experience. You are in a position where you can really scale and you can really embed advocacy across the organization. Interesting, because I was saying that probably 6 years ago it was us asking people to partner and to, for example, turbocharge advocacy across different departments, and now it's the opposite. I think the value of advocacy is there. People know the benefits that we can bring to the business, and that's great. So, long story short, I would say you need a vision, you need passion, you need resources, you need let's say a plan to let's say not a plan covering 2 years or 3 years. You need to a short term plan that could take the piloting off. That was our experience, I would say.
Yeah. And tactically, I like what you said about creating a pilot. I think sometimes we're pushed to go big or go home. At least that's been my experience. And it's actually, let's start small, prove out the value, and then build upon that and present on that. And so I think that's a great, tip for people who are building out an advocacy program is start small with 50, 200, whatever seems appropriate for your audience.
6 years ago, it was 2 people, for example, and now we've got an organization of 20 people. So I think you also need to be realistic and understand, okay, if I've got limited resources, what can I do to make an impact? And based on that, probably you can raise a business case to further grow your advocacy practice within your company thing.
And let's face it, most of us, that's one of the spookiest things is we all have limited resources, I feel like. Yeah, that's really cool. And one thing you mentioned too is just about internal kind of getting people on board, which we'll talk about in a few minutes as well. And so from my perspective too, I've had a couple learnings in terms of where do you start? Because I always think about customer marketing as you have all these tools and you have all these programs. And so what does the company actually need? And so when I first started way back in the day at Box, really what they needed was content. So I was like, okay, how do I do this? Bring on an external copywriter to help make content. And then we had events, right? And like a reference program came way later down the road, which is interesting. And then at a company I was at called Outreach, their sales platform, and the audience is sales. And we had all these salespeople who loved the product. And so I was like, the directive was like, let's just engage with them. So I was like, how can I just engage with a bunch of people at once? And that's why I brought in a tool called Influitive, which is a community-based platform where you can kind of scale out, because it was just me at the time as well. And at Coupa, it's a little more established. The program, we had a full reference program with, technology like Reference Edge, but what they really needed was structure and strategy. So it was like, okay, how do we structure out and strategically create customer marketing as a strategic piece of the business rather than just a services organization, which is kind of what it was before. So, they're all different approaches you can take, but it's kind of like just going in and surveying what are people saying that they need. And so, if you move from company to company, don't have the same playbook each time, really kind of listen and go in. And one thing Vernon had mentioned in our pre-call, he'll probably talk about, but is like at Box as well, a customer advisory board, I always think is one of those really great advocacy programs to start early on, because especially at a smaller company, because it's one way to engage with sales really well. And then it's a way to engage with product and have customers influencing the product early. I think that's just kind of critical. So, those are a couple of thoughts that I also had around, when you're building, where do you start?
Well, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah. And so let's talk some tactics, right? I want people to come away with some really cool ideas that this SMART team has been doing within their organizations. And so one thing we want to talk about is like, how do you engage with advocates creatively, get them engaged, but then also internally, how do you get people on board to give you advocates or to be aware of the program? So we'll start with, creatively engaging externally with advocates. And I know Vernon and Jessica, you definitely have some tips and tricks for everyone here. Maybe no treats. I don't know.
I think it's always a treat. Yeah, I can talk a little bit about, something unique that we got ahead of and we were really creative with was, and thanks to we have an incredible marketing ops team. We actually ended up, we didn't have a way to sort of transact with customers or like gift them at scale. And what we ended up doing is we partnered with Postal, and they've been fantastic. And what we ended up doing or building is anytime customers are onboarded into our program and they sort of receive like their welcome kit, it's sort of like in an automated process right in our email just by using a hyperlink. So that was a creative way where we took some fantastic feature called Magic Links in Postal, and we're able to add them to our welcome kit emails. And we also added anytime when we're working with customers and let's say they did a talk for us or they've just really championed us in some way or advocated for us, we're just able to use these magic links to quickly go ahead and give them a gift or give them the option to take the gift. I know sometimes you have customers where they can't always accept the gift, and sometimes that creates blockers internally. But for us, it was a way for, if you would like it, you can go ahead and take it and Postal will handle the rest. So those magic links were just super impressive to use in sort of our onboarding and sort of our life cycle of our champion program and how we work with our customers.
Can I ask a quick follow-up question to that?
Yeah.
How do you know who to send those to? Is it in automated fashion at all in terms of, okay, yes, we've identified these customers, we're going to send them this link, but you're one person, so there's probably a bunch of these customers.
Yeah. So for the champion program specifically with the kits, what happens is when the customers sign up, we simply see that they want to be a part of the program. We'll go ahead and accept them through Salesforce. And then we have sort of our email sort of triggered and set up in a sequence in a way where they'll get an email based on for their welcome kit, and they just go ahead and click the link. Now, for customers that are just doing one-off things for us, sometimes they may not even be in the champion program itself. We just quickly go into Postal UI, grab the gift that we want, create the magic link, and then we go ahead and send it in sort of a little thank you email for the customer. And then they handle the rest. They go ahead and sign up or take the gift, give their address. We don't have to maintain any of that.
And then how are they signing up? Where do they go to sign up?
For our champion program? So we have a main landing page, just a main landing page on our website. They can learn about the program. And if they're interested, there's a whole Marketo form that they go ahead and put in their information. And that's also a great way for us to capture their use cases, sort of different ways that they see their use cases and the value that they want. And what it also does is it helps us understand how to segment our champions based on whether they want to be a speaker, they're interested only in case studies, or they just want to talk to the press. So that whole Marketo form actually helps our segmentation, but it's just right on our website when they sign up.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks. Awesome. Jessica, I know you have some thoughts too.
Yeah, I mean, I think with all of these advocacy programs, what you need is a menu for people to be able to choose where they want to plug in. You know, some people are going to be really excited about speaking opportunities. Other people just want to answer surveys. So you need a range. But I think it's like that on the what's in it for them as well. You know, it's got to be a blend of intrinsic and extrinsic rewards. Those extrinsic rewards like swag and gift cards or whatever, they're fairly transactional, but they do matter. People will engage because of them. But I think it's the intrinsic or the intangible rewards where you really get to get creative. Things I've seen is like empowering them to, if you're doing a launch or you're doing an event, giving them the hand in the planning process. You know, what do they want to see? Where should it be? What kind of sessions do they want? We have an Adopt a Champion program currently at Dropbox, which is a great way of balancing the value both for the customer as well as internally. So if they're a highly engaged champion, they can get matched with somebody within Dropbox who can also be matched to them. And it's a great way for us to learn from customers on a very personal basis. And it's a great way for them to feel like they have this extra entree into the brand. Some of our rewards are like, if you want, you can get a tour of the nearest Dropbox studio to you. So it's, I think that's the most fun place to think about how you can reward customers for participating in these advocacy programs.
Yeah, I'd also follow up on that as well, Jessica. I feel like one of our biggest, the postal integration is fantastic. Gift cards, all the swag is amazing. But the biggest thing, most often, every time I talk to customers, product roundtables, just those kind of ways that they can interact with our product teams is just so valuable. And that's one of the big reasons why they even join.
Mm-hmm. Once we had a pizza party as a reward for customers who did advocacy. And so they could like cash it in and they would get a pizza party for their company. This is like obviously pre-COVID, but they actually loved that one. I love the Adopt a Champion program. I'm going to steal that. But it reminded me in the past to have done a mentor program, which is probably, you can come up with a better name, but it's connecting old school advocates with new school advocates so that they, you make that connection. It helps with sales, like all that good stuff
Love
too.
that.
Yeah. So cool. I love that. Okay, well, let's flip the script. So that's advocates, right? And sometimes it's probably easier to actually get an advocate excited about the program than it is for internal people. Just having them understand it, having them know what their role could be. This could be sales or the CS team or even product or even, your alliances team. Like, how can everyone get involved? And so I'd be curious to hear, how some of the tactics from the group on how you're engaging internally with these people to get advocates. And I know, Valerio, you had some thoughts on that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's way more complicated. I think that there is a technical side, which is integrations. So, for example, when I think of the partnership that we have with sellers, I really need to say that because we've got different programs, we've got a community obviously of advocates, champions. We've got a reference program, an exceptional community, and an influencing program. So the more those programs and platforms are integrated, for example, with FTC or platforms that sellers use, the better, in the sense of us seeing more positive results in terms of them really nominating their customers to the reference program, the community, and it gets our let's say it makes our job easier. I think there's also, that's the technical side, but education is a key point. I feel that in a case we've been spending so much time in educating the different organizations and audiences on the value of advocacy on the business, and the impact on the business, and that means a lot of obviously data. That means a lot of let's say proof points to validate the fact that that kind of bond that we create for with customers is actually making a real difference to the organization. We also have a lot of newsletters, comms, creating ways to interact with the audience. So we try to make the conversation fun, I would say, because we want to make sure that they understand that what we do is creative, is really makes our customers let's say even more excited, and it tightens the connection with Cisco. We do a lot of partnership with CX and the BUs, for example, and the segment teams, and I think that the community is key, in the sense of making sure that they can have a say when, let's say, creating campaigns, launching new initiatives. So what we normally try to do, we start discussion with a main point of contacts coming from different organizations and departments, and we really show how they can use the different programs to achieve what they want to achieve. And guess what? It's less costly. It takes less time. We are using Intuitive as well, so obviously that's the tool that helps you let's say make the processes faster, and they see a lot of value in return. So back to your original question, I think it should be a broader range of activities in terms of comms, in terms of, let's say, relationships, but also, I'm not going to lie, like data set, a strong data set, and also I would say integration tech stack, because that gets people on board straight away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all points I agree with in terms of the overarching strategy. A couple of things that we've done, and that I look forward to doing, is actually a teammate of mine was like, at sales kickoff, we should have a booth, and we should serve like mimosas, and we should get the sales team to give us reference or advocates, basically. And I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea. Fun stuff like that. And in the past too, Vernon in our earlier chat was talking about how his company has put very strict guardrails around who they want to be an advocate and who they don't, which I think is an interesting point just in general, and probably could talk about that for a little while. But we've also thought about that similarly, because you always need certain types of customers. It tends to be, at least in our case, that we have a bunch of customers and they're all kind of in the same category, but we really need these other ones to support sales messaging and everything. And so I've put together a contest before that was basically a matrix or a grid, and it had the thing that we really needed the most in like the top right, and that was like $1,000 if you could get us that. And then the other thing, so it was like maybe 6 very specific things we wanted to drive behavior from sales, so that we weren't getting sort of the extra advocates that we didn't really need for our purposes at the time. Numbers are great, having more is always great, but if you can't engage with them, then what is that worth? And so for us, having that specific contest actually went over really well. And another tactic that I've employed before that was really helpful is, again, it's like usually customer marketing is this tiny organization, and then there's all these other like orgs, mostly like customer success, who have all this customer information in their heads. And so I would put together these story time happy hours where I would put them, in a room for an hour and say, hey, for every story you write me, I'll give you $50, and I'll bring beer and I'll have water. I mean, I'll have water too. I meant food and music, but survival skills here. But virtually that can happen too, where you can get them on a Zoom and still incentivize them in a certain way, but it's just a way to scale out and get the people you need. And then you have that dedicated kind of moment in time when everyone's working towards the same thing. So lots of, ways to actually engage with people, but it takes time, it takes time to do all these things. But yeah, and I don't know if Jessica and Vernon, you had other kind of tactics in that area that you wanted to share.
No, I just want to say I love that like you're also creating energy with all those things that you just listed. Like you're creating an experience of customer marketing that people want to be associated with. So I love those suggestions.
Yeah, usually the goal is if you're hearing from me, you're like happy to hear from me is like what I would love for them to feel. I'm not sure that's the case, but it's the goal.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, I know also another discussion, we have a couple more small topics to talk about, but one of them is kind of like, what mechanisms did you build to address your customer programs at scale? And I think we're mostly talking about technology here, but anything, to help the group and help the audience understand, like, what can I do to do this at scale? Because usually it is, we want as many advocates as possible. We want to grow this program, and we're usually a small team again. So take it away.
Oh God, that's a broad question. A lot of things. I'm not gonna lie. In terms of tangibles, budget. I mean, you need obviously, you need obviously resources. You need let's say people and but obviously as I said earlier. So you do a pilot, small pilot. You prove the success of it. And then, based on experience, you see more investment, you see more resources, seeing advocacy as a full-time job, not as something on top of what they normally do. But for us, I would love to get your thoughts. I mean, the partnership, with the regional teams. So when I look at let's say evolution, I mean, it was absolutely essential for us to rely on regional teams that could, let's say, I would say turbocharge advocacy, but also take establishing their closer in relationship with the advocates. That's helped us a lot in terms of scaling. And then I would also say just your execs, let's say buying in the sense of people really and pushing for your program and really explaining why. It should be, for example, launched in a new region, or or let's say, or promoted by a different, org in a company. So I think it's a mixed, bag, but I would say it's definitely passion, proving the value of what you're doing, day by day, and then regional teams and the structure. I would say probably the way you structure your program when you start. That will help you scale and start, delegating a lot of things to outsourcing, probably. That's what I'm trying to say, like, giving, more responsibility to the stakeholders, the BUs, the regional teams, so that you as a, global team, become a kind of, a kind of, center of excellence, if we want to use the word, or, a team, really advising on the way we should let's say be doing advocacy in the organization. But at least the foundation, the skeleton is there in the sense of running the day-to-day activities and operations.
Yeah, center of excellence is an interesting word. We're at Coupa, we're considered a center of excellence, and it's tough because then that means resourcing is majorly a thing. But Vernon, you are a one-person customer marketing team. We're talking about scale. So give us a day in the life of you.
Yes. I'm thankful to have support from so many different teams, but yes, it is kind of a one-person show. But for us, and when we rolled out our champion program, I have an amazing leader and manager, and we kind of got ahead of it where we were like, okay, we want to work with the best logos. We want to work with the best customers. Like you said, we want to qualify them. So we left sales. We're giving the keys to sales to sort of qualify and nominate the right customers, and sort of gave them a criteria to go based off of. The biggest thing for us is we knew that, we have so many customers of different types of orgs and sizes. And what we did was for a specific account size, we have them go through a more automated onboarding process into our champion program so that I don't have all of these touch points with so many small or mid-market accounts. For more enterprise and strategic, we have a more guided onboarding process where I'll actually build those bonds and those relationships with those customers, because those are usually the ones we want to partner with on events, and really build up advocates there. So that's how we were able to do it. Maybe on another panel, I can go into the weeds on the integrations and what we built. But that's how we were able to just address scale, being that I'm just one person. But yeah.
Yeah, and you said the bigger companies get the more white glove approach and the smaller companies get a little more automated approach, which I think is quite common, I would say. What's the one thing that you did that's helped with that scale for the smaller companies? Like if you were hey, if anyone was asking advice, the one thing to scale to do, what would it be?
Just how I've heard this before. For us, it was really, my one piece of advice would just be, if you can just what we did was we relied on email automation and sequencing for sort of that journey for the customer, our champion program for those SMB, let's say, customers. So that's how we did it. And it's just the best guardrail I think we've built so far with our program. That would be my one big piece of advice.
You said that's a Salesforce Marketo integration?
Yeah. So for us, it's we were able to identify the customer account, their size, and essentially what happens is before they're accepted into the program, if we identify them as a strategic or enterprise customer, we work with our customer success team to sort of onboard them, have a discovery call, talk about what they would like to advocate for, their use cases. And then for the more SMB, we can just sort of flip a switch right in a custom field in Salesforce, and it just pushes them through a sequence, an email sequence.
Very cool.
But yeah,
cool.
I love our marketing ops teams.
Yes, indeed. We love them. Okay, Jessica, what mechanisms do you have for building for scale? I know you guys have done a great job with that.
Definitely agree with everything that everyone has said, although big +1 to Valerio's point about budget and resources. It's much easier to scale once you have some assigned budget and resources. I think the key for any advocacy program basically has 4 things that it needs to be able to do. And you need to be able to identify advocates. You need to be able to activate those advocates when you find them. You need to be able to reward them, and that sometimes that means building relationships with those advocates. And you need to be able to track all of that so that you can get more budget later and grow to a team of 16 people like Valerio can. But I think the thing that has made it easiest to scale is making customers part of the identification process. I think, especially bigger companies, you have access to a lot of data. That's very helpful. You have to build good relationships with your CSMs and your sales teams, and that's going to be a great way of identifying them. But your customers themselves are going to tell you when they love you and when they want to be a reference customer. And if you make them a part of that process, you're going to get to scale a lot faster.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. I love the steps too. If we can give people steps, that works well for me in my list brain. So anyway, so I'm going to pose a little challenge to us as a group, which is answering this question in one sentence, right? And the question is, what's the spookiest thing that's happened in your advocacy journey? Could be anything.
Speaking from my experience as being Launch Darkly's had just such incredible growth over the last few years. So when it came time for the need of customer marketing and I sort of pivoted over from customer success, the spookiest thing is being the first person to try it at my company and learning all these new things and speaking on panels and learning from you all who have been doing this for quite a lot longer than I have. I think the spookiest thing was starting out and not knowing that I don't have all the answers. I would say it was the spookiest thing, but then it turned into a very rewarding, that I am just figuring things out and getting creative and sort of building something from the start. So yeah, having the courage to start something new that we've never done before.
Okay. That was a long sentence, and I'll give you a lot of commas.
Thank you.
Okay, Valerio, maybe?
Oh God, that's tough. I would say, yeah, I mean, I can say, I've made, many mistakes and probably things that I would do, differently, but I think, that's part of the journey. And yeah, probably, yeah, if I think of, campaigns, or if I think of, I don't know, even, customer, let's say, projects that were not as successful as, we hoped, so, but yeah, definitely not ideal. But what I'm trying to say, also great learning, a great opportunity to understand, probably next time I shouldn't do it. And I know that I should, approach X, Y, and Z in a different way. So I think that's probably, yeah, also linked to scaling, in the sense of you do make mistakes. I mean, that's part of, human, nature. But I think what makes you, let's say, grow is really making, things, yeah, differently, next time. And it's probably something that I've seen us do a lot. Like, probably, yeah, I wouldn't go for the word, failure. I don't like the word, failure, but like, doing, things that, were not really successful, but absolutely being aware of it, and then taking a literally moving towards a different direction. That's probably what yeah, makes you grow eventually.
Okay, you get even more commas.
I know. I mean, I'm the worst person. I never stick to a couple of words. Like,
I love it. Okay, Jessica, you can take some comments if you need to.
I appreciate other people going first, so I can try and distill a little bit more. I'll say, if you're doing customer advocacy, it's really about relationship building, and it needs that feeling from both sides. The customer wants to build the relationship, so does the company that you're working at. And inevitably, you're going to run into what they call badvocates, people who are just there to rack up points and like cash it in for gift cards. And I think you need to have a way to deal with them. For us, we've kind of developed tools to identify that behavior and messages that kind of softly allow that person to know, okay, but if you're going to engage with us, we want this to be an experience where you're giving something as much as you're getting something.
Very tactful. I like that. That is pretty spooky too. Mine is similar in terms of just burning out customers, right? That's just, it's happened. I've done it, and it's like feels awful when you do it. And so, when I'm presenting to people and saying, we don't want to burn them out, we don't want to burn them out, that's what I'm trying to avoid that feeling again, because it's, they're like, you know what? No, I'm not going to do this anymore. And it's like, ugh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. So for me, that's spooky. And then if anyone after the call, Gartner Peer Insights is a spooky beast for me, and the team, in terms of just making that dance of Gartner Peer Insights. And so that we include in kind of like advocacy and counting that towards advocacy. And so, yeah, that's been a spooky journey for us so far at Coupa, at least. And so don't know if anyone else can relate to that, but yeah, so thank you so much. This is an amazing kind of discussion, and I know that we could probably talk for a lot longer, and I'm hoping that there's a lot of questions in the chat to the group about tactics, or where to start, or when it's more established, what do you do? How are you rewarding? Literally anything at all. So we welcome those comments and questions. I think I speak for the group when we say that. And yeah, happy spooky Halloween to those who celebrate, and take care. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Hi everyone, I'm Kevin Lau, Senior Director of Customer Advocacy at F5. Now, with the global pandemic and news of impending recession, companies have now renewed their focus on customer attention. Now, as a customer marketer, wouldn't it be nice if you had the exact playbook and guide to follow on the specific action steps that you could take to drive real value for your customers? Well, I'm excited to share that I'll be launching a Customer Advocacy Master's course to learn how to create a game-changing customer experiences that actually do drive business growth in your own career momentum. We'll delve into the fundamentals, and we'll even talk about the strategy as we take a step-by-step approach to building a customer advocacy program from the ground up. Be sure to be on the lookout for more information throughout today's event on how you can get started. Talk to you soon. Take care.